Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Today I thought we'd start off with the watch of the week in a blizzard. So anyway, we're going to talk about Art's hovering to Felix. This is my Felix out being blizzard tested, and it's a great watch. Harboring 2 is a relatively small Austrian country. There's pretty much a husband and wife team with a few people that are dedicated watchmakers and watchmaker apprentices, and they make these wonderful watches. This little company has won 3 Grand Prix de horology, and I've talked about it on a number of occasions. They are priced very reasonably for this wonderfully made watch. They have an in-house movement. They have two watches now with the in-house movement. One is called Felix. This is the one here that Art got. And the other one is a new one called Irwin with jumping seconds. The getting one of these watches, you're pretty much stuck with having to buy a new one, and you got to wait about 3 months. That's because people who have them don't sell them. They keep them. I did find one in Brisbane, Australia in condition 0. There's this one shop there that has a number of independents. Anyhow, you can see in the back of it, it's a very clean watch, almost Bauhaus, and it's both designed not only in the dial, but also in the movement. Now, this particular dial, I got to tell you, I like it better than mine. I've got the black dial and I like it fine, but I tell you, the white dial with that big red 12 at the top, here you have everything. You have a great price. You have really good high horology with an award-winning watch. Everything that I think a watch collector could want. I don't think there's a watch collector gathering you could go to that people there aren't going to recognize and really value harboring 2. So Art, congratulations on that great looking watch you got there. And now we're going to take a look at how to plan or how to map out a strategy for watch collection. But I'm going to go indoors now. Enough of my blizzard reporting. Hi everybody, I'm back inside now where it's nice and warm. First thing I want to point out is that Harboring 2 is a small company, not a small country, I think, as I said before. Today what I want to do is that I want to take a look at getting started with a watch collection and to set up a foundation for it. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the foundation of high horology. And what they have done is that they've divided watches by themes, and I think that might be the first thing that we want to take a look at and think about. The first group of watches that they have are called design watches, and there's a difference between design watches and fashion watches. And design watches have the emphasis, excuse me, the emphasis is on the integration of the functions of the watch and the appearance of the watch, the way it looks. And the elements, they have an original movement, case, or dial. And a lot of times they'll do something interesting like the Ulysse Nardin does. The bird flies up and down and moves around. And again, it doesn't interfere with telling time at the same time. Other kinds of things that they have in design watch are when they skeletonize it, and you can see all of the inner workings of the watch right through the front all the way to the back sometimes. So design is the first type of watch where the emphasis is on the design itself, integrated with the movement. The second is the technical. And this has to do with a new caliber watch that does something interesting, or does puts a number of different functions together. And this also involves materials used on movements. They're using silicon now in some of the gears, and there are all kinds of different things, advances in high frequency technology. And high frequency technology in the mechanical era have to do with the speed of the movement, and certain elements in the movement, that the higher the speed, that they can divide seconds into smaller and smaller units. Now, this is not going to be as much as quartz can do, but we're talking about mechanical movements. The 1815 annual calendar by A. Langeson is an example of a piece of wonderful technical technology, or technical watchmaking. The next group is the classic. And the classic watch is sort of an interesting one, because it's more restrained. It doesn't have all of the hoopla that some watches seem to have today. And it's an aesthetic, smooth continuation. Another aspect of the classic has to do with its vintage characteristics. Some of these things go all the way back to the 18th century, such as Breguet and Patek, not Patek Philippe, but Vacheron Constantin. And we're talking about going back at least 20 years, which is, pretty soon. 20 years from now is still going to be in the 21st century. And so this is another, a lot of my watches, I think, would fall in this category. And the Calatrava, Patek Philippe Calatrava, is an example of one of the restrained classic models that we think of. The next group of watches are women's watches, and women's watches they have certain kinds of things that are put into them that are different from men's watches in two ways. One, there's certain kinds of, well, besides, and also they're more likely to have jewelry. They tend to be smaller, but sometimes there'll be some kind of action in the watch. Like this one watch that was a wonderful one, had the feathers of a peacock moving back and forth. That also requires some very, very interesting mechanical elements to women's watches. So women's watches are the four themes. So you have design, you have the technical, you have the classic, and you have the women's. So when you're thinking of your collection, think of what role each one of these may play in your collection. Now, the next group of classifications we're going to look at is one I've been working on, and other people have too, and there's always going to be disagreement. But I came up with three categories that may be helpful. We start at a good level, I'll put it that way. And I'm calling it strong horology. A lot of times they refer to luxury, this and that, but the emphasis that I want to place on horology is sort of the art and science of timekeeping. And your characteristic of strong horology is that, first of all, they have in-house movements. And in-house movement means that they manufacture the movements they make. There can be some really strong horology with movements made by somebody else who is at the same level, who makes excellent movements for themselves, and sometimes they'll sell it to other companies. All right, they have a high standards and tolerance levels, and they have excellent movements, and they have what I call near mass productions. And what near mass production, I suppose, means is that they produce plenty, they're easy to get, they're not really expensive because of their exclusivity. Now, some of them may have a certain model that's exclusive for something special, and sometimes they will cost more. Now, I'm recommending three to get started. I mean, I think are good starter watches. One is a Rolex, the other is a Zenith, and the other is a harboring two, either the Felix or the Irwin. The reason that I had to specify the Felix or Irwin is that those are all of the models of both of those are going to be in-house. Whereas with the Zenith and the Rolex, I don't even know if you can get models that have somebody else's movement in it. Okay, now this is within 20 years or newer. So right now it'd be from 1997 to today. There are a lot of other ones that are possibilities and that can be mentioned. Seiko is certainly one, Omega, Vulcain, Tudor, Mont Blanc, Hermes, and Nomos. A lot of people think that Mont Blanc and Hermes are fashion watches. They may have been at one time. They're not anymore. They have their own movements. Nomos, the same with them. Tudor has begun to win several, as a matter of fact, Grand Prix awards. All of these they tend to have their own movement, but some of them have other ones. That's why I'm sticking with those, the first three that I mentioned. Now, the next level is what we refer to as high horology. Again, they have all of the characteristics of the strong horology, except there's something extra. They have impeccable craftsmanship that goes with it. They have robust quantities. I wouldn't say near mass production, but they have robust. They make plenty of them, and they have things like better finishing. This would be in the craftsmanship. You'll find more perlage and Geneva waves and other kinds of fine finishing. All of the everything about the movement as well as the outside is done at very high quality. There are plenty to recommend. I promoted, I guess. Girard-Perregaux is a very good choice as an entrance level to high horology. And I think it's important to understand is that Girard-Perregaux Girard-Perregaux has all. I mean, they have provided movements for other high horology watches. And so, for that reason, plus the fact that they have been doing as of late, some very interesting things and winning awards for doing it with their watches, that they belong in high horology. Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, A. Long and Son, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Audemars Piguet, Parmigiani, Breguet, Blancpain, and Grand Seiko. All of those I would recommend. Now, this doesn't say they're the only ones, but they're ones that I feel if you get one, you're going to have a good high horology watch. There's some examples there for you to look at. The Vacheron Constantin, A. Lang & Son is the one in the middle. Lower right is the Girard-Perregaux, and then to the lower left is the Jaeger-LeCoultre. Most people think of, well, how come it's not a reverso? Well, that's just that one is the night and day, and I like it. So there are a lot of things to like in this category. Now, the final category is what I call extraordinary horology. This is sort of like getting a painting by Picasso. It's one of the great painters. Here you have people who are true artists as far as watchmaking is concerned. They're very creative. But the production number is low. I mean, some of them are so low they're hardly considered. Roger Smith, who makes these fantastic watches, only makes, I think, 10 a year. So production being very low is not unusual. They are expensive, though. I was looking at a new FP Journe that just came out this year. It's the Octa Lune with a reserve, what's it called? A reserve indicator, small seconds, moon phase, 51,500 euros. It's a platinum casing to it. It's a beautiful watch. and I really looked for one that, well, maybe we could somehow sneak in and get if you're interested in this kind of this level of horology. And I found one, a Louis Moinet. Moinet goes back. He has, I think, Moinet got credit for having invented the is either the chronometer or the chronograph, one of the two. But it's an amazing company. But they have this one comes with a rubber strap, and it's about $7,000. And I'm sure that on the used market you can find some better deals than that. But here you have this is where you have the highest of the highest, and those two were recommended simply because one was affordable and the other one is one that I have some experience with. I have a couple of those myself. Now, the future may be right around the corner. Uh, just this year, a new movement came out. It's Agenhor's Eigengraph, and it may be the chronograph of the future. A lot of problems with chronographs are banging around with flipping back and so forth for working them. And Agenhor came out with a new one, and this may change the whole face of everything. And but it's probably not going to be widely distributed, at least right away. It would start at the very top because it's the kind of movement that contains genius of the designers and developers at Agenhor. Agenhor is just this amazing company that makes amazing movements. Okay, well, for getting started, those are some tips to start your map. Is looking at the different themes, looking at what I put in as the different levels. There are a lot of videos and a lot of people who are very smart about watches who will talk about watches that are much cheaper than these, and there are some available. I just don't know what they are, and so I'd rather leave that to someone else. So the levels that I think, at least I have some kind of that we try to do here on WatchArtSci, are starting with the strong horology and going upward. Now some companies move into that strong horology, or they move from strong to high horology, as Girard-Perregaux did. And but anyway, I like your opinion on this. I'd love to hear from you. And so, tell me, tell me what you think. Also, too, this is an invitation to subscribe if you'd like. Okay, that's all for now. On Sunday, we'll have our collection review. And until then, this is Bill Sanders for WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection.